Craig, welcome to the show, mate. Nice to have you on.
Thanks, Michael. Good to be on board too. Thank you.
Listen, you wanted to talk about climate change, but I'm assuming when you say that you are referring to the climate change scientists who've written an open letter to the Prime Minister warning that New Zealand government plans to introduce agricultural methane targets will jeopardise existing agreements that we've made internationally and potentially trade agreements that we've made as well. Or have I got that wrong?
No, you're perspicacious as usual, Michael. That's exactly what I want to talk about. So, the Financial Times article came out on the 2nd of June, quoting or referring to a letter sent to our Prime Minister, CC, to the Financial Times by 26 international climate change scientists. And only one or two, I think, are named or have been quoted, but I don't know who the 26 are. Maybe it'd be helpful if we all knew who those people were. And they were accusing the New Zealand government of ignoring scientific evidence, quote unquote, over plans to lower our methane targets. Just by way of context for your listeners, the current target that is in place in New Zealand, this is an internal target, is a 24 to 47% reduction in methane by 2050. Our farming community are up in arms. They don't want that target. They want a lower target, and they certainly don't want a price on methane. The government put in place a review panel to consider methane, and they've come up with this concept of no additional warming, which would happen if we lowered the target to between 14 and 24. So going from 24 to 47 to 40 to 24 would mean, in their view, there's no additional warming. And that's the proposition on the table at the moment. Prime Minister Luxon has not made any decisions, and I guess the debate we're having now, for example, amongst our communities, will be helping to inform him on our preferences. What I really liked about PM Luxon in the last couple of days, he's clearly said to New Zealand media, we are not shutting down New Zealand and sending production to other countries that are infinitely less carbon efficient than we are. I got to congratulate him for standing up for our productive food sector. We are a nation of 5 million people. We feed 40 million people. The agricultural sector is one of our most efficient sectors in terms of productivity relative to, say, sectors like education and health. So, quite rightly, farmers are continuing to challenge the science. We're in the same position as Ireland. It was referred to in the Financial Times letter as well. The Irish have the same issue, large exporters of food from a relatively small, efficient producer. There is a way forward through here, which is to use the science that's already in place. And I've talked about this in the last 12 months. And it refers to a finding in the UN IPCC methodology debates over the contribution of methane to GHGs, to greenhouse gases. And there's a suggestion in their 2021 report, which clearly said that the methane in the current methodology that's in place until 2026 clearly will overstate surface temperatures from methane by a factor of 3 to 4 times. Now, these are scientists inside the UN IPCC saying, guys, we might have overstated methane's contribution to GHG and therefore those targets over the next 100 years in their models. Well, it affects us as New Zealand because almost 50% of our GHGs are methane. We're a huge outlier and we are penalised under the current methodology. So I congratulate the Prime Minister for challenging those 26 scientists, but let's help them by showing them that the scientists themselves inside UN IPCC are saying methane's overstated. If we correct it for that overstatement, then we can all breathe a lot easier and get on with farming our productive agricultural sector. Amen.
Yeah, no, the Prime Minister, it's very interesting, you're right. It's hidden behind a paywall in the Financial Times, that particular letter, which I guess is what you found out as well. But I'm interested in the idea that the Prime Minister sort of came out with the political solution or political answer that you did. But you're saying, listen, you can combat the science with real science. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. Like
Mm.
science is about hypotheses, and you test hypotheses, and you come up with a yes or no answer. In this case, we're dealing with models out 100 years that are models, very hard to test hypotheses. And so we should be having a debate about the assumptions that make up the GHG profile. And one of
Yeah.
those is important for us, which is methane. So we have scientists inside the UN community who are asking the question, we may have overstated methane by a factor of 3 to 4 times in the calculation of GHGs and therefore the models. So the Prime Minister can refer to science today at a global level to rebut these global climate change scientists who
Yeah.
may be feeling a bit of pressure on their models and their assumptions
Ah, I
around the
see what you're saying.
pathway for
Yeah.
GHG. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I haven't read the panel's report, the New Zealand panel's report that's recommended a
Yeah.
lower target of
Yeah.
14 to 24, and they may be thinking about the methane contribution, as has the UN scientists themselves. So finally, we're having a debate on the science of methane, not beliefs, but science.
Well, the interesting thing is that one of the people who enters this and argues that there is no new science on methane to justify a fresh review is Simon Upton, the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, who believes that all this is done and dusted. Does that mean Upton, frankly, needs to retire?
Well, I'd like to know further why he says that when it's quite clear in the 2021 report that scientists are saying methane's overstated. That has meant that we've been stuck in this methodological bind until 2026 when the next 7 year um, consensus around the pathway for change is agreed by UN members. So we're stuck with this methodology from the last decade, which has a much higher methane than the 2021 report suggests. So if the UN IPCC, with our diplomatic support, argues with the Irish that the methane number is overstated and get that agreed at the UN level, happy days. But we should be batting as diplomats, as Winston Peters and the team at Foreign Affairs should be batting now on behalf of our farming community to say, let's take that science that's clearly stated in IPCC in 2021 and reduce the methane factor as proposed by the scientists themselves. That solves a lot of issues.
Okay, last year there was an independent panel set up to review the country's methane target.
That's right.
It was reported back, well, it was due to report back by the end of 2024. I'm sorry, I haven't caught up with that. Has it reported back that you're aware?
Yeah, well, that's the numbers that have been referred to in the press. So the review panel has suggested that we lower the methane target from 24 to 47
That's a huge
percent
variance
by
there, can I just
2050.
say very quickly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I haven't read the report, but I would suggest to you that by lowering the target, the assumption I'm making and they're making, and we need to see a bit more of the evidence, but they're saying you don't need to have such a high reduction target. You can have a lower reduction target and still have, quote, no additional warming, unquote. Right?
I'm
So
getting the feeling,
that's
and I'm sure
the
you are
nexus.
too, Craig, that well, the left green view is that cows are the problem in this country, dairy in particular, and that they want to see a reduction in stocking levels, to put it crudely. And the talk from the Prime Minister, which is we want to improve production, we've got to essentially intensify our way out of this particular fiscal and economic crisis that we're in. This seems mutually contradictory. And tell me, I'm pretty sure those are the two messages that I'm picking up, so most of others will be as well. I assume they're mutually exclusive, are they, those particular messages?
Well, I think it's always when hard, cold dollar numbers hit aspirations, there's a change, and people finally understand the costs of transition. So we've already heard Trade Minister Macleay clearly say we're not going to pay and buy, sorry, I'm not going to buy European carbon credits in 2030 if we miss those 2030 targets. So that's gone. We've now got the Prime Minister saying we're not going to export our production to less efficient carbon emitters in other countries. So there's now a building political will that is saying to those who may be holding an ideological position, not a scientific position, that actually you might be wrong. And that's challenging for those who have built careers around climate change methodology or in some cases ideology. Our own political party leaders here in New Zealand have said consistently, just look at the science. Well, here's the science in the UN IPCC report 2021, which is saying you might be wrong. Methane is overstated in the numbers. You need to wind it back. And they don't want to hear that, I suspect.
I suspect you're right. In fact, I've just got something here from Sean Rush. He says, Michael, the methane letter to the Prime Minister. Professor Dave Frame at Canterbury University is the leading New Zealand expert in this area. He lectured me on this subject 5 years ago. The New Zealand position is consistent with his advice, which is published in the peer review in 2019. The letter, he believes, I think he's endorsing what you're saying, is an attempt to embarrass the government to more extreme action and is politically motivated rather than based on science. You appear to be backed up on that from New Zealand's leading methane expert, Craig.
Well, that's really good to hear. I think it's encouraging to hear people supporting those who want to challenge the status quo or belief systems using science, using the very arguments that these people have been using in the past. But that science hasn't been challenged. And scientific inquiry is all about putting up hypotheses and debating them. And, we need to have more of this. And I'm just so pleased that the Prime Minister is standing up for our farming community and hopefully is able to use the evidence of science to back up his position. It's wonderful.